Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
And it's time for Faith and Sport here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. Hope you're ready for an hour of faith and sport and a whole lot of fun, because that's what it's time for here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. It's Faith and Sport, and we are also broadcasting on 1270 AM WCGC on the Carolina Catholic Radio app and carolinacatholicradio.org. And without further ado, here's your host for Faith and Sport, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Folks, how you doing out there? Welcome to the show, however, wherever you're listening. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I'm an exercise scientist at Wingate University, and every Monday I leave my job early there to come over here to shoot some faith and sport at you guys. I think we're in month 3 of doing this. I love this every day. In fact, every day I feel like saying, hey, we're going to have a good show for you folks. And I've never once sat in front of this microphone and said, we're only going to have an okay show for you. So let's talk about what we're going to do. We're going to do this week's Hit and Miss once again with soccer coach and my good friend Carlos Herrera. So he's going to join us in a minute. And right after that, our guest is going to be Joe Condit. Joe Condit is the founder and CEO of Catholic Speakers Organization. In fact, just a little bit about this. If your parish, function of somehow or something that you've gone to involving your parish or the diocese or something, brings in a Catholic speaker, usually they go through the Catholic Speakers Organization. And Joe is the founder and CEO of that, so he's going to join us. In fact, in particular, we're going to talk about, at least at the latter part of our conversation, some of the speakers that talk about fitness and sport that you might be interested in. We're going to do our weekend headlines. We're going to do the quick Q&A with Dr. A, and then we're going to finish it off with our Cathlete of the Week, which is brought to us by Brand RPM. Get your branding gear. We have access to over 1 million products. Check them out at brandrpm.com. So let's do this. Let's get right to our hit and miss. This is where Carlos and I talk about something good, bad, something interesting, funny, something negative, whatever in the world of sport. Let's bring Carlos on right now. Carlos, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Dr. Acquaviva. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Are you, man? You must be excited about the Nats. The Nats are now up 2-0. They're coming back home. There must be a palpable buzz in the city of Washington.
Oh, there certainly is. There definitely is. The Redskins won this weekend for the first time, and the Nats winning. The Mystics won their WNBA championship. I mean, the city's on fire.
Carlos, I love that they're on fire partly because the Redskins. You know, I never told you this, but Chris, our producer, the guy who picks up the phone every time and the voice you hear, he is a legitimate and long-time, hard-nosed Redskins fan. So talk about a guy that's been through a lot of thin and less thick and then more thin in the last couple of years. So you guys have that in common.
A lot of support groups have sprung up because of the Redskins.
Well, hopefully now that the era of Gruden is over, the Redskins can move forward and upward.
That's right. We'll
hopefully.
see.
Can't go backwards much.
Right. Hey, Carlos, this is a trivia question. This has nothing to do with our hit or miss. Today used to be called, at least in most places, and I think still is called Columbus Day. What's it called in Washington, D.C.? Do you know this?
It's probably Indigenous People Day.
How'd you know that? What do you mean it's probably?
It's a wild guess.
No, Carlos, has this made the news out there that, is it a big deal? How did you know that?
Because I know that a lot of people recently have been offended by the colonizer and, the conquistador Columbus, and anybody who's discovered and, quote-unquote, subsequently had a name in the oppression of indigenous people. But yeah, that's what I figured, that they're trying to feel better.
That's right. In fact, a few cities have done that. And, one of the interesting things is I wish they would have just turned it into maybe some type of celebrating the nationality of the Italians. Because if you think about it, the Hispanics, I think, isn't this Hispanic month right now, Carlos?
There's always something going on in a particular week or day in the month. I don't know. Is it?
I think it is. Yep, I think it is Hispanic month. And then, of course, in February, I think it's African American month. But there's no Italian month. And if you think about it, there should be something. I mean, there are millions of Italians in this country. And further, like, for instance, I should say, in World War II, no other nationality, no other immigrant nationality had a higher representation fighting for World War II than the Italians. I think there should be. Yeah, so why not change Columbus Day to National Italian Day? Give us at least a day.
Aren't most explorers or discoverers of the old world in that time mostly Italian?
Well, Columbo, our boy, yeah. In fact, it's funny we call him Columbus. We can't. Why do we have to put a U.S. at the end? Can't we just put an O at the end? Does everybody knows how to pronounce that just as much? Yeah, he was an Italian.
I don't know, but he worked for Spain, right? He's the one that Spain gave him the job.
That's right.
So I think we should blame the Spaniards.
Okay, anything but to blame those Italians. Carlos, let's hit our hit or miss for the week. As always, you go first. What was it, a hit or a miss?
So you mentioned it could be just about anything, and I have a funny one. Our most esteemed Blessed Pope sent out a tweet to his 14 million followers about town saints, right? So, due to the 5 saints he canonized, but apparently it made it on the NFL, whatever they call it, Instagram list, or
he hashtagged it, right? That was the reason. Yeah,
he hashtagged Pound Saints, and so all the Saint fans that showed up at the NFL, and the Saint players were responding. And apparently they won. They eked out a win over Jaguars, 13-6. And people were tweeting, thanks, how could we lose with the Pope giving us his blessing on the game?
I know. In fact, I thought that was funny. I heard that. One of my friends mentioned it at school today, and he goes, the Pope accidentally, I forgot how he worded it, but he said he canonized the New Orleans Saints. And, of course, that's not really what happened. But
I don't think that's what he said, but he said something like, congratulations to the new Saints or something like that, and he said Pound Saints.
I know. Oh, yeah, that was funny. And all of the New Orleans Saints went, the Pope loves us. No wonder why we're winning so much.
Right.
In fact, that
probably lose with the Pope on our side.
and I think, well, you would understand this probably better than me, but they, when you hashtag something, you can have ownership over that hashtag, correct?
This is outside of my realm. I'm not just a soccer guy. This technology.
All right, Carlos. I'm gonna tap into your knowledge about yesterday's canonizations. There's 5 new saints canonized. Can you name any of them? People.
Yes.
Let's hear.
Columbo Vespucci is one of them. I have no idea.
That was pretty good. You combined Christopher Columbus and then
I forgot his first name.
Yeah, it was Amerigo Vespucci.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, I know it's interesting. It's literally where the name America came from. But again, why didn't they name it Amerigo, just like that guy from Italy?
I have no idea.
Here was the other people.
These are questions that are far above my pay grade.
I'll just in fact, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing it.
It's for the PhDs, for you PhDs to have those conversations over tea.
Or Carlos, people who have a internet right in front of them. That's who that's for.
That's right.
Okay, so here's the other 4. Okay, so the big name yesterday was Cardinal John Newman. In fact, the reason you probably know that name is there's
Cardinal Newman.
Yeah,
Baltimore.
That's right, because there's a lot of Newman centers around the country, and those are the Catholic Campus Ministries, and often they're called the Newman Center.
Yeah, he's very popular.
He is.
Very popular.
The 4 women were Giuseppina Vanini, India's Miriam Teresa Mandikian, and these are both founders of their particular convents, and then Brazil's Sister Dulce Lopez Pontes, and then Switzerland's Margarita Bays, and that was a laywoman. So, in fact, the first 3 spent their lives working for the poor. That's one of the reasons they were canonized. So,
I think I heard one of them was an Italian.
Giuseppina Vanini.
I actually did read about her this week.
Yes, she's apparently.
I remember her name.
Yeah, she's apparently done some great work. So, congratulations to anybody, especially if they're related to those folks, and especially the nuns that are in those orders. It's always a big celebration for them. So, all right, I'm hoping that, Carlos, you heard about my hit. Did you read that for the first time a marathon runner broke the 2-hour mark?
I did read that.
Yeah,
I did read that.
Do you know
Pretty impressive?
Yeah. Do you know anything about it though? Why it's going to always have an asterisk near it?
She disappeared off the radar for a little bit.
That's right. And then he was seen on the subway for 2 miles of it, and then he popped back up. You remember? That's a true story. Her name was.
Yes. They vacated somebody's medal. For that. And apparently he had done it another time at another marathon.
That's right. And actually, it wasn't a medal bearing event. It wasn't like for the Olympics. It was for the Boston Marathon. And it was in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And her name was Rosie. I can't remember her last name, but actually she recently died, and that's one of the reasons she made the news again. But let me explain how this went. Carlos, well, first of all, he's an Ethiopian. No, not Ethiopian. He's a Kenyan, and his name is Eliud Kipchoge, right?
Okay.
And the reason that it doesn't really go into the record books is even though he's run the fastest marathon of all time, Carlos, there was no other runners in the race. So
what?
Yeah, he just ran the 26.2 miles, and then if you see pictures, everybody is dressed in black, and they were what are called pacers. So they would come out literally at certain intervals of the race, and they would
urge them on.
That's right.
From a timing perspective.
Yep, because long distance runners, and we do this in sprinting as well, they will run at a faster pace if they actually have a person rather than they're going by a watch or a clock of some sort.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yep, so there was no other competitors, so that means he didn't have to, especially in the beginning of the race or when he wants to pass somebody near the end of the race or during the race, going uphill, whatever. He had none of those obstructions. The other thing was there were arrows on the course indicating which was the fastest and best way to take a turn, to go around a corner, or to go up a hill, whatever the case was.
So he had kind of aids?
Yes, he had many aids, or the fact there was no obstruction, right? If there's no competitors, there was no obstruction of any.
Yeah, so that would seem like very important part of a marathon.
Oh yeah, it's a huge part. In fact, all three of those things are factors, but the main two are those last two: no competitors and arrows showing him the best and quickest route to take, literally throughout the entire course. So if he had to go through a turn or some type of corner, they would literally have arrows that, in other words, a path that he could walk on. In fact, you know what they probably did? They probably got somebody's tennis shoes and they dipped it in white paint and just run along those.
Yeah, so you could cut corners quicker. You could take the inside route, the shortest path. Yeah, that seems kind of an unfair aid. That bothers me more than the baseball coaches yelling out the guys on second base telling the signs. Yeah. Oh no! In fact, well, the thing is he broke it, but it'll never go in the record books, and deservedly so. That's the whole part is you have to navigate on your own. There's no pacers. And there's competitors that elbow you along the way. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many do the Boston Marathon. It's got to be, I know it's in the thousands, maybe up to 10,000 people. I don't know.
That's like having a quarterback throw a ball from like the 20-yard line and see how far he can throw. That's the longest throw of an NFLer, which does not equate to real game experience.
That's right.
People breathing down your neck.
That's right. We got to move on to the next segment, but that did make me think of. Hey, Carlos, did you hear about? Her name escaped me. She was on the women's national team. She kicked a field goal, and I think it was about 45 yards at a NFL camp earlier this year. Did you hear about this?
Yes. Yeah.
Who is that?
It's popped up in all sorts of. I'm in Annapolis. I don't have my computer in front of me, but she's I think the number one goal scorer right now in the women's. Well, maybe she's the number one, but she's the captain of the women's team.
Yep. And then let's see. So anyway, if you've ever seen her name is Carly Lloyd. So I just looked that
Carly
up.
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you look at the tape of her kicking that 45-yard field goal, Carla, she takes about 5 steps before she kicks it. You don't have the time to do that in an NFL game. You have time to take a step and a half, and that's it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, you know how it is. I mean, even when they do that, the ball just gets missed by the people on the line or the guy coming from the outside. So,
very different. But I get the analogy with that.
Yeah, so it was a loose analogy, but that is there. So, listen, you're in Annapolis, you're doing work, you always take time out to do this show. You're always a good guest.
Love it, John. Love your sports. Love our faith. I love combining it.
I know, same here, buddy, and that's why you're going to be on a regular basis. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk soon, Carlos.
Have a wonderful show.
Thank you, buddy. That was Carlos Herrera, certified soccer coach. He joins us every once in a while for a segment on soccer, but he joins us just about every week to do our hit and miss of the week. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. If you just joined us, this is Faith in Sport on Carolina Catholic Radio. If you want to contact me, have an idea for the show, or in particular, what I would love to hear from you guys is somebody that you'd like to hear from, like a coach, an administrator, a referee, somebody in the world of sport that exudes their faith, that is outspoken about their faith. We would like to hear from you. So there's 2 things you can do. You can tweet me at JAquaviva1, so JAquaviva1, or you can just email me at faithandsport@wingate.edu. That's faith and A-N-D, sport@wingate.edu. So be sure to reach out to me if you have an idea for a guest or an idea for a segment on the show. So, folks, let's do this. Let's go right to the back to the show's phone line and bring on Joe Condit. He is the founder and CEO of Catholic Speakers Organization. He's going to tell us all about CatholicSpeakers.com, what he does, why he started this whole organization, and how important it is to our faith. Joe Condit, welcome to the show.
John, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you today.
I appreciate this, man. Listen, tell me, what is the Catholic Speakers Organization, and what services does it offer? Just to give our listeners an idea, because my guess is a lot of them are going to be hearing about this for the first time in their lives.
Right. Well, hopefully not, but you're right. I'm sure it is. And, to put it simple, we promote the Word of God. I mean, that's the simplest way to put it. Now, how we do that is in many different ways. I like to say that we spread the Word of God by promoting those that do it best, guys like you. Professional speakers who get out there and speak in front of crowds of thousands and tens of thousands and motivates people based on a message of faith and the message that God gave us through His holy word. So that's our ultimate backbone of our mission. And from there, just a ton of things have spawned from it. We've, by the grace of God, grown today to be the largest Catholic speakers bureau in the world, where we represent more Catholic pro-life professional athletes, professionals, celebrities, etc., than anyone else, because our focus is on the Catholic faith and providing a service for folks that are putting on events to have a trusted resource, to know that we've gone out like a talent agency, which we've kind of become, and vetted these folks, made sure that they're diocesan approved, and just gone out and found a lot of speakers that events can count on when they come to book them, with us. And many other things have spawned from that as well. We now have a scholarship fund where we donate money to events or parishes that don't have a huge budget. And, without us, they wouldn't be able to bring in a speaker that they'd want. So that's been going over extremely well. We initiated that about 5 years ago, and it's really humming. We just try and provide everything possible for services, not only representing the speaker and what they need, but also helping those that are putting on the events. A lot of these events, John, as you know, they have one event a year where they raise all their money to carry them through the next year.
That's right.
So they're able to call us and get resources, get data, get advice, and we help them think through what they're trying to achieve. And, it's been wonderful. We've worked with thousands and thousands of groups all over the world booking our speakers.
Yeah, that's terrific stuff. In fact, I know that just about everybody that I know of involved in a parish, a conference, a retreat, whatever the case is, I think in every case that when I've asked them how did they find their speakers, they always mention you guys. So congratulations on that. You guys are doing great work. And let me ask you this. I mentioned in the beginning when I introduced you that you are the founder and the CEO of Catholic Speakers Organization. What were the motivations behind you starting a Catholic Speakers Bureau? Because that's what it started off as, right? And then it's just branched into the other things that you mentioned.
Yeah, it did. And I got an incredible staff and colleagues that work with me that make this thing work these days. So I'm just lucky enough to have had by the grace of God, have the idea. But it actually spawned from my younger sister. She was speaking to high schoolers as a high schooler about women's respect, self-esteem, chastity, all the great messages that every young woman should hear.
Yeah.
And she was going to these events, and she started filling gymnasiums. And I was in college at the time, about to graduate, and I'm thinking, well, Christina, how is this happening? And she kind of walked me through it, and then I realized, wow, she could probably use some help with, the back-end office stuff, helping the event organizer stay in touch with her better, streamline that communication, and also, as she would start traveling the country, maybe there may be a contract involved, so it was kind of a 101 business, but then I thought to myself, well, there's got to be a lot of other Christinas out there who they're just focused on spreading the word of God. The rest of it is just not really what they want to deal with. They just want to get out there and give their message and motivate people and remind them that, God loves them and give them a good message. And so I saw a hole to be filled there, and sure enough, we represent over 400 Christinas now today, fast forward to 2006. So it worked out really well, so I really credit her a lot for having the courage as a high schooler to go out and talk to other high schoolers about the topic that nobody wants to touch on. As these poor kids today are just bombarded with the Kardashian message, and I hate to call it that, but this celebrity idea that, it's a lot of the messaging is a very anti-Christian, very self-absorbed, very, very empty. And so, Christina was really the catalyst to what is now, the largest Catholic speaking network in the world, which is kind of crazy to think about. Never would I thought I'd ever reach that point. But, hey, I think hopefully we're doing something right, and it's all by the grace of God. I was just the fool that he worked through, I guess.
Folks, you're listening to Joe Condit. He's our guest today, and he is the CEO and founder of Catholic Speakers Organization. And as we're having this discussion, my encouragement to you, if you're sitting at home and you have a computer handy, go to CatholicSpeakers.com, and you can see a little bit more about this organization. In fact, some of the speakers that are on there. This is Faith in Sport. You're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. Thank you for joining us today, folks. Joe, thank you for joining us. And let me throw something else at you, referring to the speakers and their charisms. Why do Catholics want to hear from them, and why? That is, what are the most popular, not necessarily speakers, but what is it that Catholic audiences and, dioceses and parishes, what are some of the main issues they want to hear people talk about?
Yeah, it's got to be stories that relate to them, right? Like, we live in this world, and no one's immune to it. We live in a world now, we've seen this trend where it's, how does everything relate to everyone, right? We've got to bring them in. How do we relate to our audience? And I always say God's truth doesn't have to relate to anybody. It's up to us to choose God's truth, but that's a whole other conversation. But when it comes to, filling a room and an audience and motivating them, folks want to hear messages that they can relate to.
Yeah.
And when you're a celebrity like these, like sports celebrities, and people with that kind of platform, that always helps, because they can look and they want to hear their stories. They are extraordinary. These folks have reached a level that most people in their life will never reach. But then they hear their message, like, wow, that guy suffers the same way I do.
Yep.
Rich Donnelly is a great example of that. He's currently in the Mets organization, former professional baseball player. He's a coach at the Mets now. He came and spoke at the conference we have in Cincinnati, Ohio. This guy will put you to tears. I mean, just the adversity he's overcome and how he's trusted in God, and talking about also mixing it in with his professional sports life and how, and interesting and exciting that had been. But we just got a lot of speakers like that. Like Boss Rutan, an MMA fighter, recently has come out and started speaking on his conversion to the Catholic faith. I mean, he's one of the godfathers of the MMA sport. Everybody in that are fans know who he is. So there's guys that are just using their platform to come out and use it for good, and it's just fantastic.
That is awesome. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio. Our guest today is Joe Condit. He is the CEO and founder of Catholic Speakers Organization. And let's talk a little bit about some other specific speakers. You mentioned two in particular that are faithful Catholics. One of them was, as you mentioned, a convert to the faith. But I know if anybody went to the CatholicSpeakers.com website, and I'm familiar with it because I'm actually blessed to be on that list of speakers as well. But, Joe, what are some of the other names of some of the athletes or people that talk about sport that people have particular interest in? And even though, and I know that you and I have talked about this before off air, some of them get actually contacted a lot. They just don't say yes to it for whatever reason. But either way, who are some of the people that are saying yes to this, and what message are they bringing either directly or indirectly related to sport?
Sure. Those names are the ones that people come and they're unfortunately just not able to be everywhere. We work with are guys like, Lou Holtz, Mike Piazza. But the guys that you're talking about who are able to get out there a little bit more from a schedule perspective is, we represent Elvis Grbac, the former NFL quarterback.
Yep.
He's out giving an incredible message. Matt Burke, if you remember Matt Burke, he was the center for, and all these guys speak on any topic, motivation, family, just that locker room speech you need to get sometimes as a man or a woman, whether you're leading your family or your, men's conferences where they just need to, be woken up again and have that refresher of being the best man they can. But Matt Burke, he was the center for the Baltimore Ravens when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he gives his talk about, he's got 8 kids, incredible speaker, motivator, and he'll talk to you about family, et cetera. But he became famous when the White House, under the administration, the Obama administration, invited him to the White House, and he politely declined because Obama just supported and signed major funding over to Planned Parenthood.
Yeah,
I think 3. So that was an incredible story. Kevin Riley, another football player, he's amputee, lost his arm. He goes and gives a motivational speech about not only all the adversity he overcame in his professional career in football in the NFL, but also what he does today. Just these guys, it's such courage that they're getting out there, in a world that is becoming more and more anti-Christian.
Yep.
For them to use their platform, their celebrity, and basically putting that on the line to sacrifice it for their faith. I mean, that is one thing among many that I admire about all these guys. We got tons more if you want me to keep going, but those are just to name a few.
No, those are excellent examples. In fact, on the previous version of the show, we were on Radio Maria, which was in, I think, 13 different cities and affiliates. And one of the guests I had there was one of the best guests we've ever had, and that show was on the air. That version of the show was on the air for about 2 years. We've been on Carolina Catholic Radio now for about 3 months. But it was Father Chase Hilgenbrink. And I know he's part of the Catholic Speakers Bureau with you folks, and he is just terrific. I mean, few people have that combination of being able to articulate their faith. And, of course, he is a priest, but he does it with a certain flair and a certain dynamic presence. And even though he was on the phone, you could just hear his energy about the faith. And one of the reasons that his story was great is, and this is probably as well as anybody, but he left MLS. He was a professional soccer player at the highest level here in America, and he got the calling midway through that season with the New England Revolution to enter seminary. He quit the team, entered seminary, and now he's a priest for the Diocese of Peoria, and he is terrific. And, Joe, I asked him, Chase, I think I asked him off the air, but I probably didn't ask him this on air, but I asked him either way, Chase, how many invitations do you get to speak per month? And this probably won't surprise you, but you know what he said? 30. 30, which, like people like me who get a call every once in a while, and some of these other folks who want the phone to ring. Here's a guy who has a certain story to tell. And, of course, one of the reasons it's so great is because, especially to young men, he speaks a certain language to them. You can be fully masculine. You can be fully a man. You can be fully in love with God. You can fully love sport. And he combines all those, and it articulates all of those points perfectly. And ultimately, he said yes to God in the form of the priesthood. God bless that guy. I thought he was great.
Oh, he is. John, I'm glad you brought him up. He actually, believe it or not, was the next guy I was going to talk about from a perspective of who gets asked to speak the most.
Yeah.
And just can't be everywhere. I wish I could, clone Father Hilgenbrink.
Oh, yeah.
How many requests we get for him. And he's such a saint attitude toward everything.
That's
He
right.
always lets us know. He tries to do everything he can. But, yeah, he's an all-American guy. You look at him, he's a great-looking human being. He was an incredible athlete. And he chose God above all that. I mean, as all guys in sports. Me, of course, growing up, we all dream about becoming a professional athlete.
That's right.
And the fact that he heard God's calling and had the courage to follow it with all of those things. I mean, he is the all-American kid, right?
Oh, yeah, he is.
And then became just this holy priest that has just done so much great work, well beyond probably what he would have done if he would have stayed a professional athlete as a soccer player. And, he's just been such a blessing to the church, to the whole movement, and especially just like you, John, allowing us to work with you and represent you as a speaker. Without you or Father Hilgenbrink, none of this works. And it's just a whole beautiful community that's come together online and where folks can really just find you guys and experience your backgrounds and hear your message, hopefully, and bring it to their parish. So God bless you, John, your show. God bless Father Hilgenbrink. And we're all just going to keep locking arms and fighting the good fight together.
No, that's well stated, brother. And before you go, sounds like I took a line out of what you were going to talk about and talk about you stealing a line. Every week, Joe, or just about every week, we have what's called the Cathlete of the Week. And we combine, of course, the two words athlete and Catholic, right? Guess who I chose as this week's Cathlete of the Week? Matt Burke.
Did you have him on yet?
No, I didn't have him on yet. In fact, off air, I was going to say, Joe, can you get me his contact info?
Yeah, that's happening right when we get off here, brother. That email's going. I'll connect you, and you two will be off the races. Yeah, I can't wait for your audience to hear Matt. He is just, he's got that booming man, I'm going to tackle you kind of voice. He's everything you think he'd be. He's one of those guys that's just larger than life, but as humble as anybody. So that is so awesome to hear. What a coincidence.
Oh, yeah, that is highly coincidental. I thought that was great how we connected on so many ways here. But listen, I'm going to let you go. You are a busy man. But before you go, I want to mention two things in particular. Thank you for all that you've done, because through your organization, and I mean this with full sincerity, it's stories like people from Matt Burke and Chase Hilgenbrink and Haley DeMaria, who we didn't talk about yet on air, but there's all these folks, including some of the people that you talked about, that bring the faith to people's dioceses, their conferences, their retreats, whatever the case is, and that's a form of spreading the word and a form of apologetics. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for keeping with this. Because I know you've grown from probably just a couple speakers to what you have now. And congratulations on everything. And I am going to encourage our listeners to pray for you and all that you do to keep moving the faith forward.
John, thank you. God bless you for what you do as well. I appreciate those words. And, like I said, we just got to keep fighting the good fight, brother, and showcasing folks like yourself that are out doing great things and giving good messages.
I appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for joining us, and you take care, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. God bless you and your audience.
Thank you. Well, there you go, folks. That was Joe Condit, and I mentioned a couple times during the interview, but it's worth repeating. Be sure to go to CatholicSpeakers.com, especially if you're on some type of parish council or on some type of temporary committee to bring in speakers for your men's group, your women's group. Contact CatholicSpeakers.com, Joe Condit at Catholic Speakers Organization, and you'll see a whole list. And with each and every speaker, you're going to see what their charism is, with some of the topics that they speak on. And as Joe mentioned, I am blessed to be a part of that Speakers Bureau. So if you want to read more about what I speak on, you can do that as well. So, in fact, it sounds like we're going to get another football player on the show. Chris, did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Yeah, Matt Burke played in the NFL for 14 years.
Yeah.
And he's on fire for God. And so we'll eventually do that.
Yeah,
so let's do this.
Awesome.
We're going to come back, Chris. We're going to do our weekend headlines. We've got the quick Q&A with Dr. A, where you shoot me a bunch of questions, and then we'll finish it all off with our Cathlete of the Week. So stay with us, though. We're going to take a break here on Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
That's right. And during the break, you're going to hear a great song from a very talented artist, Marie Billette. It's her latest song she's got out right now called Nothing to Say, and she's one of the artists and singers featured on the up-and-coming Carolina Catholic Music Night at the Abbey. That's at Belmont Abbey College in Belmont. That's coming up Saturday, October 26th, and this is being brought to you by the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. So if you haven't reserved your tickets yet for this night of great Christian and Catholic music, make sure to make your donations and make your reservation online right now at carolinacatholicradio.org. That's carolinacatholicradio.org to reserve your tickets for Carolina Catholic Music Night at the Abbey. That's at Belmont Abbey in the Basilica there in Belmont from 6 to 10 p.m. Saturday, October 26th, to hear some great artists like Marie Billette, who you're going to hear right now during this break here on Faith and Sport here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. And we'll be right back with more Faith and Sport with Dr. John Acquaviva here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network.
Nothing to say since you went away. I sweep the floor, stare out that door. This house, it seems, peaceful and clean. The laundry's done, but where's the fun? I always knew there would come a day the world would come calling for you, and I'd have to stand there and smile and wave while my heart was just breaking in two. Friends come around, I can't be found. I stay in bed over my head. I thought I knew about loving you. I didn't know about letting go. Lizards and laughter and fishing poles, prayers before bed every night, coaches and corsages, time to go. Do your best now and hold your head high. So much to remember, but now I guess I've got nothing to say. Nothing to say since you went away. But you were smiling ear to ear in the rearview mirror. So hey, what more can I say? Nothing to say except for maybe stay. Won't you stay a while? Stay.
The first annual Carolina Catholic Music Night at the Abbey will be held Saturday, October 26th at the Belmont Abbey Basilica, beginning with Vespers at 5:30 p.m. Come enjoy all the musical performers featured on Carolina Catholic Radio together for a special one-night performance. The Carolina Catholic Music Night lineup features Marie Billette and her beautiful songs of family, faith, and sacrificial love. You'll also hear performances by the Carolina Catholic Chorale, the St. Joseph Seminarian Singers, the D3 Foundation Singers, and the St. Michael Children's Choir. Seating is limited and tickets are going fast. Make your reservation today at carolinacatholicradio.org.
And we're back here on Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. You're listening on AM 1270 WCGC, also on carolinacatholicradio.org and the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And now let's get back to Dr. John Acquaviva talking more faith and sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio. Dr. A.
Thank you, folks. Hey, thank you for joining us today. Again, we've had good, really good first half of the show. We're joined by Carlos Herrera for our hit and miss of the week, and then our guest was Joe Condit, the CEO and founder of Catholic Speakers Organization. So be sure to check them out at CatholicSpeakers.com. So let's do this, Chris. We're going to do our quick Q&A in a couple minutes, but first let's do our weekend headlines, and then we'll end with our Cathlete of the week. So here's what happened in the world of sport this past weekend and what's coming up. Major League Baseball, of course, we're in the playoffs now. Our beloved Nationals. Actually, I'm a Tigers fan, but I lived in D.C. so long, I actually like the Washington Nationals. They have a chance to move up to 3-0 against the Cardinals with a game tonight. The Yanks and the Astros are at 1 game apiece in the American League Championship Series, and with Game 3 tomorrow night. College football.
Yeah, I was really shocked to see the way the Braves got knocked out by the Cardinals the other night.
That's right.
I couldn't believe that. I was like,
oh, I know.
Those aren't the same Braves that made it this far. What happened?
No, I know. And they went up 2-0 in their series, right? And they lost the next 3. And then now the Cardinals themselves, who beat the Braves, they're getting shut out just like they did for the last 3 games of that series.
There's a lot of people that said that shouldn't happen. The Braves should have beat the Cardinals and moved on.
Yeah, they should have. They were the better team, I thought. They certainly had the better year. Mm-hmm. They just couldn't do it. They went up 2-0, and they just kind of shut down after that. A good year overall, though, Chris.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was.
Really good year overall. College football, there was one big upset. University of Georgia, who was ranked number 3, lost to unranked South Carolina. I know some of our listeners were here in the Carolinas. They were happy to see that, but that was a huge upset. And speaking of USC, the other USC from the West Coast, they almost pulled off a huge upset of their own. They're unranked. They almost beat highly ranked Notre Dame. That score was 30-27. Notre Dame came out on top in that one. There's a few top 25 matchups this weekend, highlighted by number 16, University of Michigan, at number 7, Penn State University. In fact, that is where ESPN's game day is going to be, so they'll spend that whole day reporting from State College there in Pennsylvania. That's one of the big matchups of the week, but I don't give my beloved Wolverines much of a chance there. I said that. It's terrible I said that, but I just don't have much confidence in that team this year, despite the fact that they're 5-1, Penn State 6-0. Could be a good game. I'm hoping it is. In the NFL, let's just talk about the NFC South. Let's just focus on that. Of course, the Panthers, they continue to roll. They've won their 4th straight. Just a couple weeks ago, Chris, I was saying they're 0-2, and only one team in the last, 18 years has started 0-2 and made it to the playoffs. At this rate, of course, they're going to be the second team to do that. Right. We'll see if that happens. The Atlanta Falcons are plummeting. They only have 1 win on the year. The Saints continue to do well. The aforementioned Saints that accidentally the Pope tweeted about. Did you hear about that, Chris, what Carlos was talking about?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, because he hashtagged Saints, and his thing on the canonization of all these people that were sainted in Rome went out to every fan, tens of thousands of people down in New Orleans, or people that are fans of the Saints. I thought that was funny. In fact, I'm not surprised Carlos brought that up, because it's kind of been like the joke of the weekend that the Pope did that. And of course, the Redskins won their first.
That's right.
Chris, did you see how that game ended?
Yeah.
So you saw them go for the 2-point conversion. I love that.
I did too.
We were talking about this a couple weeks ago. I just love when teams go for and there was, I think, 6 seconds left. They scored a touchdown.
Yep.
They just wanted to win the game. They so easily could have kicked the field goal, sent it to overtime. Instead, they're at the 3, and they're like, nope, we're going for it. And the Dolphins missed it, and the Redskins end up winning.
Yeah, it was a nail biter. I was like, come on. Like, oh, yeah.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, I mean this. So was there any part of you, now that they started 0-5, was there any part of you hoping that they would lose, because then they would just more greatly ensure that they were going to get the number 1 pick? Or were you like, you just couldn't help being a fan? You're like, come on.
Yeah, I was like pushing for them to win, and there towards the end I was like, oh man, if the Dolphins get this 2-point conversion, it's over. But
it's over.
Then they missed it, and I was like, yes, there we go.
And then there was an onside kick, and I want to say that kind of fumbled around a little bit, but still it would have been almost impossible for the Dolphins to win it at that point. So good for you and the Redskins.
I just hope they can keep progressing, and improving now that the era of Jay Gruden is over.
Absolutely. Yeah, that thankfully, right?
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this. They were talking the other day on sports radio about this particular issue, and it's really amazing on how much they talk about the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers right and left, and I understand, but what percentage, and you've been here long, how many years you been in this area?
All my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what percentage would you think are legitimate Carolina Panther fans? People that are football fans, not just people, right? Because everybody go, well, I like the Panthers, right? But I'm talking about legitimate football fans. And remember, this city grows by, I don't know, a couple thousand people per month, is from what I understand, right? This is such an influx of people. So those people cannot all be Carolina Panther fans.
No.
What would you estimate are legitimate Carolina Panther fans? I would say 60%.
Yeah, I would go with 60.
So that's a big percentage of the people that really weren't born here, they weren't raised here, and they don't like the Panthers any more than you and I do, right? It's a local team, but I'm a Detroit fan. You end up adopting the Redskins long before they were the Carolina Panthers, right?
Yeah, before the Panthers came along. I never transitioned over like a lot of people did when the Panthers came along.
And to tell the truth, it makes sense, right? It's just easier to be a fan of the local team, but you just stayed close to your it's burgundy and gold, right? That's the colors of the Redskins, yeah. Well, good for you, and I appreciate that. I know, the Lions stink. I so easily could transfer. I don't know, I wish I was a Patriots fan. My God.
Yeah.
You know what? I heard this the other day. Now, this is all I do, right? I talk about exercise physiology, and I talk sport all the time, right? And somebody had to remind me, guess how many times, Chris, the New England Patriots have been to the Super Bowl just with Tom Brady as their, what's the number off the top of your head? Just with Tom Brady as their quarterback.
I know they've won 6 so far.
Yep. And how many times do you think he's been total?
Maybe about 9.
It's 9. I was doing the finger thing. I wish we had a TV camera in here. That was funny. No, it's 9 times he's been there. 9 times that guy's been to the Super Bowl. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, one of these days I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. The day I jump on, he's going to retire.
I might make a lot of Patriots fans mad by saying this, but it's enough times to get tired of hearing about Brady and the Patriots.
I know, but tell the truth, I'm not near as tired. I mean, it just gets really frustrating to him talk about the Panthers as much as they do. But it's a local team. I understand it. Just sometimes I'm like, come on, talk about college football a little bit. I love college football.
Me too. I love my Wolfpack. They came off a great win against Syracuse.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Syracuse is definitely down, and good for North Carolina State. Yeah, that's awesome.
Go Pack.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so listen, let's shift gears already. Let's go to the quick Q&A with Dr. A. Boy, these first two, I don't even know if we're going to have time to get past the first one. Shoot them at me, so let's see how far we can go.
Okay, the first question we've got has to do with the NBA, and I want to ask you, what did you make of the NBA, their commissioner, Hong Kong, and China?
All right, so this is a big, loaded question.
Yeah.
Right? But for those who had no idea what's going on or are not familiar with that part of the world, a little, just 30 seconds background on this. Hong Kong is a special territory. They have separate governing and economic system from China, but they were leased to China in 1998 after 100 years of being owned by the British Empire. All right, so they have their different governing system. They have different economic system. Many of their people are from China, but there is a certain freedom that is held there. There's freedom of the press there. There is a lot of other aspect to that everyday life that we do not see in China. Now, here's what happened. And this is a side note to the whole thing, and this is why it's so important. The NBA's biggest client is the Americans, right? The United States of America brings in more money for the NBA, the National Basketball Association, than anybody. But second in that is China. And so over the last couple of years, they've been taking teams for exhibition games to China to play, right? And they air a lot of games, and it's worth, this industry from China is worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the NBA. So that's the backdrop of this, all right? So fast forward to last week. The Houston Rockets played an exhibition game, and I think just before the game, GM Daryl Morey tweeted, "Fight for freedom, Hong Kong. Fight for freedom." And what he's referring to is the independence from China.
Right.
And there was a huge backlash from the Chinese government, and immediately the commissioner and the NBA said that these comments were regrettable. But he got a backlash himself. so many people started tweeting in, and especially through other forms of social media. They started saying, what are you talking about, NBA? What are you talking about, Adam Silver? You have to support these people. These people want independence. They deserve independence. And further, they would be under the oppression. If China had their way, they'd be under the oppression. They would have this awful penal system. They would have this awful lack of freedom of speech issues going on, and a whole slew of other things that we enjoy that we take for granted. And it was so powerful that he reversed his role in that, but he couldn't have looked more phony. I mean, he couldn't have looked more sincere in the whole thing. And clearly what he was doing, Chris, is he held up a flag and see which way the wind blew. In other words, he goes, this is a regrettable situation. And then he got a backlash from that. And then he immediately said, nope, everybody has the right to say, we're not going to step in on this situation. This GM Maury has the right to say whatever he wanted. Mm-hmm. And my head was spinning on trying to figure out how insincere the NBA was. And of course, what it came down to is they did not want to lose that Chinese dollar. Mm-hmm. And immediately, one of the things that happened was the government-owned TV network canceled televising any NBA exhibition games. The internet streaming was canceled immediately, and the Chinese Basketball Association suspended all association with the Houston Rockets. So they immediately reacted to this. They overreacted to this, and they acted in a negative way and said, we don't want anything to do with the NBA just because this guy tweeted, stand for freedom, Hong Kong. Isn't that unbelievable? And this is the very thing, the very pillar that America stands on. And the United States, this NBA representative, Adam Silver, the commissioner, says, we're embarrassed by this. And then the wind shifts and he goes, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And he shifts. Oh, my gosh. This is, in fact, I'm going to go to a title. Mitch Albom is a writer for the Detroit Free Press. He's known for Tuesdays with Maury and so forth. And he had a piece that came out, I think it was just in the last couple days. And the name of the piece in the Detroit Free Press is Price for the NBA in China? It's Seoul. Boy, what? I know, come on, right? So you laugh, you got it right away. They just went, we'll lose our soul just to make money. Like they couldn't stand for anything. Holy smokes. And shame on the NBA. Shame on Adam Silver in particular. I don't care if he changed his mind. The only reason he changed his mind, it was clear to me, was because he saw the wind shift against him. But doggone it anyway. All right, what's question number 2?
Well, we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about college football. And the question is, what's the deal with the college football polls, and do they make sense?
This is perfect. I've been meaning to ask this question or talk about this for a couple of. Now, this is a good pullback from the previous question in it, right? It's just purely sport. It has nothing to do with politics or freedom of speech or whatever. But the question is, do the college polls make sense? Anybody who follows college football is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I would say for the most part, yes, they do make sense. And in their favor, the pollsters, they get it right, especially when it's at the end of the season, when they have to pick the 4 teams to go to the college football playoff. They've been doing that since 2013, I want to say. I could be wrong there by a year. But either way, I agree with virtually every year. There's some argument that could be made, but I have no issue with the 4 teams they picked every year. But here's the problem. Earlier this year, Chris, 2 top 10 teams, Notre Dame travels to UGA, University of Georgia, right, to play. They're both undefeated. I think they're both 2-0 at the time, something like that. And in a nail-biter, but UGA, University of Georgia, clearly wins that game. So Notre Dame slips to around 10th in the nation. They have their 1 loss. They've won every game since up until this past weekend. UGA, as I mentioned, loses that heartbreaker and that huge upset to South Carolina.
Right.
They each have 1 loss, Chris. Who should be ahead of who? If they each have 1 loss and Notre Dame has 1 loss to the team Georgia, who should be ahead of who, do you think?
Well, I mean, if they each have 1 loss, I mean, not really ahead of anybody.
Well, true, but remember, in the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball, and the NFL, the number 1 rule for the tiebreaker is what? How you do against each other. So if the teams are tied, you have to go, how do you do against each other? And this is a perfect example of that. This whole thing is not only perplexing, it's maddening because of this. Notre Dame is ahead this week in the polls of UGA. Georgia's like 10th, Notre Dame's 8th, and I go, Where's the logic here? It doesn't make any sense. The number one rule for to break the tiebreaker is how did you do against each other? As long as the records are the same. They're both 5-1. But here's the thing. At this point, it doesn't really matter. This is going to end up sifting itself out, and the better team will probably rise to the top. But going in, it doesn't make much sense when two teams have the same record, and the one that beat the other team is behind the other. So I don't quite get that. Well, let's do this. We only have a couple minutes left, folks. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science at Wingate University. But you're listening to Faith and Sport here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. Thank you for joining us today. And my guess is you're joining us one of three ways. You're listening to AM 1270. You're listening to us on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. Or you just went to carolinacatholicradio.org, and you're just, in both cases, with the app and with the website, you just hit listen live, and that's how you're tuning in. So thank you, however and wherever you are joining us today. Let's move to our Cathlete of the Week. We got a couple more minutes. Right. In fact, this is not going to be a surprise. This is the first time it's not going to be a surprise because, amazingly, Joe Condit, our guest from the Catholic Speakers Bureau, Catholic Speakers Organization, CatholicSpeakers.com, he mentioned one of the premier speakers that they get called about, and he's just a all-around good guy, but he's a former athlete, and he is Matt Burke. He played in the NFL for 14 years, and this guy, he's an apologist. He likes to speak about his Christian faith. He loves that he's Catholic, and he actually stands up for a lot of what the church teaches. And here's what he said about the pro-life movement. Whether it's teaching our children to be pro-life, contacting our elected representatives, or working at a crisis pregnancy center, we can all do something. These examples are in addition to prayer, which everyone can do and which everyone should do. Prayer is the basis of any good action. Each little effort helps to bring out about a culture of life, a culture in which children are appreciated rather than disposed of. Boy, what a great statement. And by the way, Matt Burke has made a lot of statements on the faith, and in particular about his pro-life beliefs. And it's always great to hear people stand up and have the courage to speak out on such a controversial topic. But I think it's especially important and especially impressive. And I think it lends itself to get more ears to turn his way when he's a former professional athlete or even a current athlete. So let's do this, folks. People like Matt Burke are out there speaking on pro-life issues, speaking on the issues of our faith. And so let's support him. Let's support him through prayer. Let's pray for his ministry, and consider bringing him to a men's group conference that you're having, to your parish, because he will, I think, connect with a lot of the people there. I think he'll especially connect with the men in your parish. And I think both men and women love to hear the faith coming from a former professional athlete. I think athletes in particular hold a special respect within our culture, and there's no question that there's a certain respect and there's a certain level of sincerity that they bring, and when they do, I just think people tend to listen a little more, and I think that's one of the ways that it improves people's faith. So that's our Cathlete of the Week. By the way, our Cathlete of the Week was brought to us by Brand RPM, from pens to polos, right here in Charlotte. Swag up and swag up at brandrpm.com.
And that's how Dr. Ray keeps his swag.
That's how I do keep my swag. So, folks, let me hand this over to Chris. Thanks for joining us today. In sport, as in life, competing for the result is important, but playing well and fairly is even more important, said Pope Francis. Before we go, I'd like to thank a special thank you to our guest, Carlos Herrera, for our hit and miss, and to Joe Condit at Catholic Speakers Organization. Check them out at CatholicSpeakers.com. And thank you to those two guys for joining me on the show today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio for Faith and Sport.
That's right, and make sure that you tune in tonight. If you missed any of the show, tune in tonight at 10 p.m. for an encore presentation of Faith and Sport here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 a.m. And you can also listen on carolinacatholicradio.org and the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And you can listen to the show on other encore presentation times here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network this week on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and of course Saturday and Sunday. So you got plenty of opportunities to hear faith and sport here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. So again, we want to thank you for tuning in to Faith and Sport here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network and invite you to tune in again next Monday afternoon to hear the Faith and Sport radio show with Dr. A and myself from 2 to 3 here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, AM 1270 WCGC, also on carolinacatholicradio.org and the Carolina Catholic Radio app. It's Faith and Sport. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.